You can be professional. Be professional.
Can I do the, what is it?
Newscaster?
What's her name? Medea. Hello. Hello.
We're talking about co-parenting, which you all have been through kind of on both sides of the spectrum as grandparents and maybe in your own personal lives. So tell us about your co-parenting experiences.
I guess one of the important things for me when it comes to co-parenting is to realize that children learn from our behaviors and what we model. So if we model anger, then they tend to be angry. I think one of the important things is to put aside how we feel personally and think about what's best for the child. Because oftentimes in my personal situation, I was angry about a lot of things. And in spite of my anger, I had to look at what's important or what's the best interest of my child.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if this applies to co-parenting as much as just my opinion of parenting. And that is, as you said, they learn from our behaviors. So for me, that translates into consistency. How you consistently behave is what they consistently see, and what they consistently see, they will mimic. You will mimic it. I'm amazed even today when I see you or I see Montel or even Kimani, I see any of you guys doing things in the way that we used to do it when you guys were in the house. I don't know. I have to come up with an example.
Well, one way is the way she prepared meals, come home and have her old-fashioned ways as far as the way she take care of her family.
Right.
Yeah.
Not only think about the kids, but the other family members that are involved as well. I think sometimes in relationships, we tend to be upset with the ex-spouse or ex-boyfriend, girlfriend, and we want to keep the child away from the family when it does a disservice to the child, because this child didn't have the opportunity to get to know the grandparents or the other family members.
For instance, in my situation, one of the problems I run into is with one of my grandchildren that I can't talk to on a regular basis. I find it hard to have conversation because I don't know him like I know the other children. Yeah. So it just become,
You're talking to a stranger.
Pretty much so. I mean, how was your day? With the other children, I know them and it's personal, but with the one I don't get to see very often, it's more just ritual.
And it's unfair to that child because I'm sure over time he realized that we just say the same thing.
Mm-hmm. So the word, not so much ritual, but superficial. The conversations become superficial.
Okay.
Because there's no relationship behind the conversation.
Yeah.
So it's like meeting somebody for the first time over and over again, and you're having to start a brand new conversation, trying to ask just the basic superficial things because you don't know enough about them personally to dive deep into them. I think another thing on co-parenting is that you have to remember that everybody has their own idea of what parenting is. And so you have to keep in mind that your household is not the other household. And so there has to be some type of communication between you and the other parent as it relates to what you want for the child. And that's what it boils back down to, is what do you want for the child? And so somewhere along the way, you and the other parent have got to have a conversation and say, so what's our expectation of what this child should know at this age, what they should learn at this age, what they should be participating in, what they should be doing? What's your idea of what they should of what their life should be like from a health and fitness standpoint, from a mental standpoint, in terms of maybe in your house you like for them to read, and in this house they just want them to have fun. Mm-hmm. And that may be okay as long as you both recognize that the reading and the fun creates the whole child. Mm-hmm. So somewhere along the way you got to have a conversation with the other parent that said, where you guys are talking and saying, I'd really love if our child grew up and did this, or grew up and knew this, and grew up and developed in this way, and then you both work towards that same goal. Doesn't mean you're doing the same thing, but it does mean that you're working towards the same goal.
Well, don't you think in a lot of instances when people separate that there's anger and bitterness,
so they're not able to have those
so they're not mature enough, or they're not ready to have those conversations? And how did we become ready?
Well, I think for me it happened, it always comes back to love. And really you got to look at it and you got to say, if at some point in time I love this person enough to be with that person and spend time with that person and create this child. Mm-hmm. And even regardless of what caused us to separate, and it could be a very angry situation, a volatile situation, but still there was some love somewhere in the past. Mm-hmm. And you just have to remind yourself that the result of that love is this child. Mm-hmm. And so forth. And so go back to that foundation for us. Don't forget to like, follow
and share.
Thumbs
up.